You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Podcast, where you get a masterclass in child-centered play therapy and practical support and application for your work with children and their families. In today's episode, I am talking about a new concept, new construct for what we need to understand and what we need to help parents understand. And actually, I'm releasing this same topic on the parenting podcast in collaboration with this one. So maybe point parents to the parenting podcast, and then this will just be for your knowledge as a play therapist. I've really, for a long time, wanted to be able to articulate what it is that creates difficulty in relating to children and understanding where they are and the why behind their behavior. So we talk about this all the time, right? We talk about kids not being rational, them not having the development of abstract reasoning until around 12. They are not cognitive, verbal, intellectual beings. They feel and they experience, and they're in their hearts with emotions driving everything that they do. We can conceive of that, and I think we as CCPTs understand that more than the average adult. But I think that we have struggled to effectively communicate to others that are not CCPTs why child-centered play therapy matters so much, why it's so necessary, the integral components of CCPT. And if you don't have those present in treatment, you're just spinning your wheels. And I think that that has always been the gap in the knowledge, if you will. We understand this concept, but we don't really know how to communicate it. So bring in Eric and Chatty Cathy, much to my dismay. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, my coaching people do, the collective people do, podcast people, I don't know if I've ever shared this before. So Eric is all on board with ChatGPT. He thinks that it's so useful, and you know how anti-technology I am. So, my authorship of Device Detox clearly has not made its way into my marriage, but that's okay. So he loves ChatGPT, and he'll put a concept in there and it'll write up a nice paragraph form, whatever. So Eric and I and Chatty Cathy, I call her Chatty Cathy. I'm convinced it's a female. Eric doesn't like that either. But if it's a chat bot, it's Chatty Cathy. So that's how I roll. Anyway, so Cathy and Eric came up with, after prompting many, many conversations with the bot, he came up with this idea that it's adulthood bias that gets in the way. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I did not coin this phrase. It's probably straight out of Cathy's computer brain. But I think adulthood bias gives us a phrase that allows us to better communicate what's going on. And here's where I'm going with this. We used to be kids. We used to be emotional beings. We don't remember what it was like to not be rational, logical, cognitive people. And therefore, because we've forgotten, we are now in our adulthood, no longer in our childhood, and it creates a bias. Because kids cannot conceive of our existence. We actually can conceive of theirs because we've been there before. See, there's the irony. We've been kids as adults. Kids have never been adults. So we can, in fact, understand and remember what it is like to just be a kid and be governed by the moment and by impulsivity and reactivity and whatever I feel I do. I don't think about anything. We understand all that, and we can even remember that if we try. But adulthood bias gets in the way. And so here's what ends up happening. Adults end up going, why did you do that? What were you thinking? What in the world made you throw that? You know better. What is going on? Why are you acting like this? Why are you crying? What? And adults just completely are biased to kids' realities. And the danger of that, I think, is that kids always feel dismissed, and kids always feel confused, and it always becomes a power struggle. Because when kids say, I don't know. Then that makes people even more angry. What do you mean you don't know? You know better. And there's all of this power struggling verbal dialogue, which there's the irony. Kids aren't verbal either. So there's more adulthood bias coming in. See, here's the thing. This is so multi-layered. We expect kids to think. They don't. We expect kids to talk. They don't. We expect kids to process cognitively. They don't. We expect them to reason. They don't. We expect them to be rational. They're not. And all of our interactions, all of the ways that adults typically approach kids, there's bias driving it. If we were unbiased and we could actually remember what it was like to be a child again, we would recognize we have to meet them where they are. We need to reflect their feelings. We need to provide choices. We need to validate, especially their experience, but at the very least, their emotions. And we need to set limits when necessary, but we would understand that they are just acting in childlike, developmentally, and age-appropriate ways. So adulthood bias, I believe, is going to be the gateway for us to help parents when we have our initial parent consultations and we're justifying CCPT as an intervention. In our subsequent 5-week consultations, when parents are complaining because we've had this conversation 67 times and my kid still does XYZ, but that's your adulthood bias coming in. Here's why. But that's adulthood bias interfering with developmental appropriateness. So now my hope is that you are going to be able to use the phrase and introduce it in your interactions. Think about the expanse of this though. So what about when we talk to pediatricians or principals or teachers, coaches, caregivers, parents, guardians, judges, attorneys, you name it, any stakeholder in a child's life? If we can, even if they don't agree, even if they don't fully get on board, even if they still think it's a bunch of hogwash, whatever, you've at least planted a seed. And we know most people need to hear something 7 ± 2 times. So if that's the first time that it's ever been brought to their attention, it may not take root right away, but the seed is planted at least. And I think that if we can start using this phrase enough, it will resonate. And my hope is that as people start to at least think about this, well, I might be biased because I'm an adult. It's hard for me to remember what it's like to be a kid. Do you know how many interactions I witness between an adult and a child? And I go, the adult is totally missing fill in the blank. They're totally missing the feeling. They're totally missing the why. They're totally missing the experience. They're totally missing what's going on for this kid right now. It gets missed. And I would also argue that most adults don't want to be that dismissive. They don't want to be that off track. They don't want to seem that callous to a child's experience in any given moment. But it's adulthood bias getting in the way. So not only do we need to label it, but then we need to have the antidotes, which CCPT principles are the antidotes. We know that. We've always known that. So it's part of psychoeducation, right? So we're going to share principles and tips and strategies like we always do, but now we have this phrase to fall back on. And I hope that changes the dynamic of the conversation that you're having with adults in their lives. All right, a couple of housekeeping things before I wrap up for today. First of all, I love y'all. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you for giving me your ears every week, multiple times a week. I know it started out as 1 and now it's like 3 or 4. So you just get more of me, whether you like it or not, but I appreciate y'all. Secondly, if you are a last minute person, if you wait till the last minute, it only takes a minute to do. I get it, but you are running out of time to not only sign up for the Mississippi APT conference, and you're running out of time to sign up for the Mississippi meetup. So if you need or want to do either one of those, please make sure that you sign up for the meetup. There's a link in the show notes, and sign up for the conference. You have to go to the website to do that. I'm really looking forward. I'm the keynote all day Saturday. So I'm really looking forward to hanging out with all of you in the Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina region of the world. And that's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, I am speaking in Virginia in March, which I know it's like March, whatever, but that's a month from now. So y'all need to be thinking about getting tickets for the Virginia APT conference and or getting ready to sign up for the meetup in Virginia. We will be having one, details TBA. And finally, I have been thinking a lot about this year and CCPT, and I actually just sent out an email newsletter with some really exciting things that are happening. Y'all just blow me away. I can't express enough the hunger, the passion, the excitement, the drive to be CCPT through and through, to hone your skills, to grow, to excel, to really just go top tier practitioner. It really, truly is a gift. I'm grateful for it every single day. And the coaching, the collective, the podcast, everything that's going on, all of the CEUs that y'all are taking through Corewell, it's blowing my mind. There's this huge wave. I keep talking about that, but I mean it. I think it's the best illustration. There's a wave of CCPT taking over the play therapy world. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. I'm grateful that we're on this journey together. So keep fighting, keep pushing, keep advocating, keep doing what you're doing. It's 1 minute at a time, one play session at a time, one kid at a time, changing the world. And really quick story, when I was 18, 19, fresh out of high school, a new youth pastor started at our church, and he gave me a bandana. I still have it, and it had World Changer on it with the image of the globe on it. And he said to me, "Go be a world changer, Brenna." Now, when you're 18 years old, what does that look like? And my entire childhood, I was convinced I wanted to be an MD doctor, and I wanted to do like a Doctors Without Borders kind of thing. I wanted to go do mission work and be a medical doctor in some remote corner of the world. Really thought that was what I would want to do. And, God has other plans, right? So I end up majoring in undergrad psychology, and then a long string of events, wanted to work with the elderly. I know, irony upon irony, but wanted to work with geriatric population, and then found play therapy and have never looked back. The moral of the story is, I think about it all the time. What better way is there in this world to change it than to help kids? And I'm not saying that other populations of other ages and other scenarios, they don't need help or warrant help or deserve it. That's not my implication. But my implication is, if you change the world, you change kids, because kids are the future of the world. And my vision is a world full of happy kids who become happy adults. Every single play session that we have, every time we walk through that playroom door, it's changing the world, one kid at a time, one session at a time. And back to being 18 years old and getting a bandana that said World Changer on it. What a gift and privilege and honor that we get to be a part of making the world a better place. And I know all of you all over the world. By the way, I said this in the newsletter, but this is worth saying on air. We have listeners. I don't think of this as my podcast. I think of this as our podcast. So this podcast has 130 countries that have downloaded this podcast. 130 countries. Can you believe that? That's nuts in the best way. So 130 countries are represented in the audience here, wanting to be a CCPT provider and wanting to learn and grow and hone skills. That's changing the world in every corner of it. I get emails all the time. I just got an email this week from Ireland, and the email line said, "Thank you for helping us change this little corner of Ireland." And that's going on everywhere. These little pockets and these little corners all over the States, all over North and South America, all over Europe, all over Asia, all over Australia. It's incredible that CCPT is getting firmly rooted in all of these places. How exciting. I hope that makes you want to get up in the morning. It makes me want to get up in the morning. So anyway, I love y'all. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to refer parents to the parenting podcast about adulthood bias, that would be a helpful resource for you. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.